Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I want to get to some other stuff other than just the Afghan crisis. But even Huffington Post is turning on Jojo Magoo. Right? This is getting way worse than I thought it would for him, because they're covering it every day. I can't even show you the stuff on the New York Post because they have very graphic pictures of what's happening there with the Taliban. And this is going to be, a long-running story that ultimately is going to, I don't think Jojo Magoo recovers from this. And I'll come back to this because I want to cover the Chris Cuomo thing and some of this other stuff first. But this is definitely validation for the truth community, and I'll get into that at the end of the video. Let's go to the Chris Cuomo stuff first here.
Before we wrap up tonight, there's one more thing I do want to say about me, my brother, my family, and you.
Wait, and me?
And you.
And me?
And you.
Why are you bringing me into this, bro? I don't have anything to do with it. Don't lump me in with you and your brother, ever. I'm not involved in this.
First, thank you. Thank you for reaching out.
You're welcome. I wouldn't call it reaching out as much as mocking and laughing at you, but you're welcome. Doing my part.
I appreciate the concern and the support. I really do. My brother, as you know, resigned as governor of New York and will be stepping down next week. There are a lot of people feeling a lot of hurt and a lot of pain right now.
Don't forget about the 9,000 dead senior citizens he's responsible for.
And my hope is that ultimately everyone involved can get to a better place, that some higher good will be served in all this.
Are you talking about Freemasonic Illuminati crap here? Because this is a F show, buddy. This is a crap fest. This is bottom of the barrel stuff, and your brother is big. He's done. Whatever you want to say about it, he's done.
As for me, I've told you it's never easy being in this business and coming from a political family, especially now. This situation is unlike anything I could have imagined. And yet I know what matters at work and at home. Everyone knows you support your family. I know and appreciate that you get that.
Yeah, we don't get it, right? We don't get supporting your family is one thing, but shilling for them and everything that you did, most of us don't get Cuomo's. And then running and hiding from the whole mess. And then dropping one of these, douchey little, I don't know what this is, at the end of your show, isn't going to get it done.
But you should also know I never covered my brother's troubles because I obviously have a conflict. And there are rules at CNN about that.
Wait, CNN has rules? Right? My wife and I watched this together yesterday morning, and we both cracked up when he said there were rules at CNN. Rule number 1, make sure you connect with your CIA handler before you report anything. Actually, that's rule number 2. Rule number 1, crap all over Trump. Rule number 3, don't report anything outside of the very narrow bandwidth that you've been told you can talk about. Rule number 4, suck it up as much as you possibly can. These are the rules of CNN.
I said last year that his appearances on this show would be short-lived, and they were.
There's 2 issues with Chris Cuomo covering Andrew Cuomo. Like he's saying now, CNN has rules. I got to be impartial. I can't cover my brother. But you did. You made him, there was this whole hero culture surrounding Andrew Cuomo that I clearly didn't understand. Because I think most people who looked at the guy said that guy is, one ghoulish MNFer. In fact, I'll show you a clip of that, right? Just some of his behavior. But he was on this, victory tour, and he was in charge of the state that was doing the worst on COVID. It was like an Afghanistan level failure in New York. It was, the amount of people dying and all the stuff that was going on. We'll get back to that because that's the second piece. But Chris Cuomo keeps on saying, I can't cover him because he's my brother. But when you were, running free infomercials for him on a news network, when he was, remember when Chris Cuomo was in the basement, like he was at his best. That was, Chris Cuomo's heyday. It was a Cuomo's family heyday. His brother was on his show all the time. His brother was being featured every day like he was president when he was giving his press conferences where he's being all, dark and ghoulish and stuff the way he is. And so the issue is you shouldn't have covered him then. You can't cover him half the time and then claim, well, I can't cover my brother. He's my brother. Well, yeah, you did cover him, right? You pimped him out there. You promoted him. He's been doing it for years. There's an old clip I saw Jon Stewart do a hit piece on the brothers arguing with each other on the Daily Show years and years ago. Chris Cuomo was on some morning show or something. And, Andrew Cuomo was giving him the business, mocking him. And so, they've been doing this for years where you have one son goes into politics and the other son goes into the media and they work together to build the family brand, right? Chris Cuomo has access to Andrew Cuomo, and Andrew Cuomo can promote himself on Chris Cuomo's show. And so it's a scam, right? It is it's unethical, and CNN let it happen. In fact, they were pimping Andrew Cuomo out all over the place on their network, saying how great he was. He was being talked about like he was the real president, and Trump was a goofball, right? And then, things went south, and Chris Cuomo refused to talk about his brother, complete meltdown and complete, turnaround from hero to villain. And it was always right there for people to see. Like, here's Andrew Cuomo's defense. So this guy puts the G in ghoul, right? Like, look at him. He's, I'm familiar with this type of personality growing up, Italian and near the New York area. There's a lot of Italian people. My grandfather was Sicilian. And when I go to... my family would drive from Connecticut to New Jersey every once in a while and see my dad's family. And, we went to this funeral and there was just, all these Italian people or whatever it was. And, there's a lot of Italians that live in Connecticut. I worked in Italian restaurants and things. And so I'm familiar with this, right? When people look at me, they think I think for the most part, Italian just, based on my appearance, but I'm only a quarter Italian. But I'm familiar with this, right? And this guy particularly, and then this kind of personality, right? Because he's so dour and just, it's oppressive talking to somebody like this, right? They're just heavy-handed and, there's a manipulation here. And just his affect. Like, there's no way anybody should have thought this guy was a hero. If you were going to cast him, it would be as a mafia boss, right? If you were going to cast Andrew Cuomo in a movie, it would be he would play some sort of mafia boss, and not like the good one, not like the hero of the movie, like the other guy, like the guy that has to, be taken out, right? Like he's the, obnoxious one. If there was like a movie about a war between two mafia bosses, he would be the villain, right? He would be the one everyone would be rooting against. And just, he's unlikable. Like, he's just really unlikable. But this was his defense.
Number of New Yorkers. The New York Times published a front page picture of me touching a woman's face at a wedding and then kissing her on the cheek. That is not front page news.
It's not front page news. I mean, just look at his face, right? I mean, like if you were, if somebody grabbed you and threw you in the back of a van or a limousine or something, and he brought you to talk to this guy.
I've been making the same gesture in public all my life.
Now he's going to brag about this, right? Or this is his defense.
I actually learned it from my mother and from...
I had relatives like this when you were a little kid. People who would maul you, when you would we'd go visit our relatives and they'd maul you, or some kind of ghoulish display of affection. My father had 2 sisters. I had 2 aunts. never married or whatever, you know, and they come up and they're handsy with you or whatever as a kid, and you feel like they're sucking your energy, but you're not old enough to understand what's going on. Like, you know, they're like, you know, these vampires. You just were like, oh, you know, you just sort of like disassociate why they maul you and manhandle you. Like, look at this, you know. I've talked about adults who kiss kids on the lips, or just kissing anybody on the lips that's not your significant other. I mean, it's, you know, and I know there'll always be people watching this like, I do that. Well, you know, maybe you want to rethink that as a strategy, because, you know, kissing somebody on the lips is a very intimate, especially in our culture.
From my father.
His dad, that's Mario Cuomo, who, you know, my dad was very happy about him being elected the first Italian governor or mayor or whatever he was.
It is meant to convey warmth, nothing more.
Convey warmth. When you go up to somebody you don't know and you touch them on the face, right? Like, you're not touching me on the face, right? Like, like, you know, you don't know me, and like, even if you do, like, that's not happening, right? You know, walking up and touching someone on the face you don't know, that's conveying warmth, right?
Indeed, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of me using the exact same gesture.
He's not. His defense is that he's doing this creepy thing and invading people's personal space and privacy. People don't like to be touched by strangers. Like some, you know, people might, you know, weirdos, right? But like, would you want this guy touching you on the face? Like, you think that, like, he came up to you and touched your face, held your face like he did here? See, he didn't know this person. Walking up to somebody at a wedding, he probably have a few drinks, and doing this, right? Walking up to her, somebody you don't know, and doing this, right? Of course she was creeped out. And his defense is, I do that to everybody. The behavior is perfectly fine because I do it to everybody. She wasn't special. His defense was, why does she think she's special? I do this with everybody. We're welcome.
I do it with everyone. Black and white, young and old.
Like, you know, just walking up to this guy and doing that. Why do you think that's a good thing? Like, I just do this with everybody. Walked up to this guy, just grabbed his chin. You know, he's got this, I mean, just, you know, maybe, you know, that's a fan, who's to say. She's kissing him back. But he's kissing a dude on a cheek, right? Like, you know, this guy right here. I mean, some kid just grabbing him, shaking his hand, and then grabbing him and making him look up at him. Like, touching somebody's face is, you know, kind of a big deal. This, you know, girl, he's like, you know, got her ear muffed here. I mean, like, he's this creepy behavior he's doing. Like, when you look at that, it makes you uncomfortable. That's his defense. Oh, it's just something I do. You know, aside from all the allegations, it's just being handsy and weird, like with JoJo Magoo, right? Like, this is this guy's defense. He's not like some warm, loving person. You know, he's got this creepy affect. He's this, you know, I mean, he's just, he's got a villainous presence. And so, it's not some privilege. You think it's some privilege. He's got weird nipple rings here we know about. You know, he's got these nipple rings. He's going up grabbing people by the face. I mean, it's nipple barbells, actually.
And old, straight, and LGBTQ.
He's just doing it over and over again.
Powerful.
These two guys, like, there's just like a ghoul-off going here. This is a Hungarian ghoul-off. Like, who can try to suck more of the other soul out of him.
People.
Kissing Al Gore, kissing Robert De Niro's.
Friends,
he's a kisser.
Strangers.
They're getting in there, grabbing the double hand grab kiss on the cheek. This guy pinching adult grown men who are older than you's cheeks. Everybody loves that. I do it all the time. That's my, you know, that's his defense, right? And he's just creepy. Like, this guy should never have been cast as a hero. Like, this is how bad things are, that the media can take somebody who is clearly a villain. When you look at him and you interact with him, you're like, oh, that guy's taking money. That guy's corrupt. You know?
The last was over a year ago, long before any kind of scandal. I also said back then that a day would come when he would have to be held to account, and I can't do that. I said point blank, I can't be objective when it comes to my family.
Those aren't CNN rules. They're your rules. It's the same heavy-handed, emotionally manipulative stuff that's going on with both of them, forcing themselves on other people because don't cover your brother at all. Now, CNN sucks anyway. Like, I don't care. You know, I'm like, I wouldn't want him to fire Chris Cuomo because I like making fun of him. Like, for me, I mean, it's just going to be the same thing. It isn't like they're going to get somebody better, right? And so this is so CNN, though. See, he covered his brother when things were great, and he pimped him out there. And then when the scandals broke, he didn't cover him, right? It's just that simple. He's like, I knew someday he would have to be held to account, and I said, I can't cover him. Well, that's your job, MNFer, right? I mean, that's up to CNN that, sucks so bad that they don't even care.
So I never reported on the scandal. And when it happened, I tried to be there for my brother. I'm not an advisor. I'm a brother. I wasn't in control of anything. I was there to listen and offer my take. And my advice to my brother was simple and consistent. Own what you did. Tell people what you'll do to be better. Be contrite. And finally, accept that it doesn't matter what you intended. What matters is how your actions and words were perceived.
Yeah, like what's happening right now with you and this, right? It's how it's perceived. And so it wasn't that he just, there were sexually 3 things. I said there was 2, but there was 3. That he was telling his brother how CNN was covering him. Like he was giving him the news media's perspective. He was taking insider information and helping his brother mount a defense, which, of course, his defense was, I mean, you just saw his defense. One of his defenses was that he just touched everybody on the face, no matter who they were. It's just something he did, right? He's something he do. And, not, oh, well, maybe this behavior I learned from my family. And he said he touched strangers on the face, right? I mean, going up to people he doesn't know and not just mauling them, right, with his creepy affect. That maybe people weren't digging it, and now he understands that, right? And so Chris Cuomo was telling his brother about internal CNN coverage of him, and people, Jake Tapper among them, were pissed off about it. Like they were, thinking that they're actual news. And so they were like wanting to cover him, and Chris Cuomo was, basically spying on his colleagues and giving info to his brother to help him with his defense. I mean, that's all fireable stuff, but CNN sucks. They're not firing him.
And yes, while it was something I never imagined ever having to do, I did urge my brother to resign when the time came. There are stories and critics saying all kinds of things about me, many unsupported. But know this, my position has never changed. I never misled anyone about the information I was delivering or not delivering on this program. I never attacked nor encouraged anyone to attack any woman who came forward.
That allegation came from within CNN itself, right? And, so that's where you would need to address this. Like, are you saying your colleagues lied about this? Because there was, there was some anonymous sources that were supposedly from CNN. Look at his face right there. Oh, poor.
I never made calls to the press about my brother's situation. I never influenced or attempted to control CNN's coverage of my family. And as you know, back in May, when I was told to no longer communicate with my brother's aides in any group meetings, I acknowledged it was a mistake. I apologized to my colleagues, and I stopped, and I meant it.
Yeah, you should have been fired. Or, you quit. This is a choice that's given between being a family member or being a reporter, being somebody that is, actually a journalist, which you're not. Like, I'm not, going to pretend that he is, right? I mean, I see CNN all the time. I see this guy shilling all the time. They all are. They are, they're not objective. They have a point of view, and they are, pushing an agenda, all of them. I mean, the whole network. But him saying, oh, yeah, I realized that I shouldn't have been doing that, and I apologized. Well, that's not enough. Like, that's, you crossed a line that you can't get back, which is a complete loss of credibility, which you don't have legitimately. But that's what this thing would be. It's just exposing what is, that this isn't real journalism. This isn't real news. And Chris Cuomo is a shill just like the rest of these guys.
It was a unique situation being a brother to a politician in a scandal and being part of the media. I tried to do the right thing, and I just want you all to know that. As I've said, we have rules here at CNN that prevent me from reporting on my brother. They remain in place and will continue to.
But you did report on him. Like, you reported on him for years, just the good years. Like, so there are no rules at CNN, is what you're saying. There are rules at CNN that don't let me report on my brother, you know, when I don't want to. When, you know, bad things are happening, I don't want to do that. But I can spy on my colleagues and give them some inside info, you know, until I get caught. Then I can apologize and say I was trying to do the right thing all along. You know, we Cuomos, we're high-character guys.
Tonight, I simply wanted to address something that, given what's happened, I just felt it needed to be said. This will be my final word on it, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, close your eyes, I mean, ever. Close your eyes in shame. So the bigger problem with this, and it extends far beyond Chris Cuomo, it's all the news media, is that, and all the doctors, all the medical community, is that Andrew Cuomo made the decision that started his downfall, but they quickly switched gears, which I've explained over and over again, that when he put sick people with COVID in the nursing homes, and people in the nursing homes were the most vulnerable, and they died, like 9,000 of them. Like, this was criminal behavior, like possible manslaughter, you know, just horrible stuff. And the whole medical community, everything that's going on right now, and, you know, the lawsuits, if that was something that they focused on, would destroy, I mean, New York State, or New York, you know, whatever, but just all of it, right? I mean, that would be a monstrous scandal. If everybody realized, you know, what happened there, then he would, you know, that his trials is, you know, whatever this outcome of this, because there's going to be lawsuits, right? There's still probably going to be lawsuits. But if they fired him for that, then, you know, it would be even worse, right? Criminal negligence. I mean, it's just, you know, just horrible stuff. And the media should be covering that, because that's a big time scandal. And so they went with his other thing that he does here, which is, you know, I mean, it wasn't the worst of the whole Me Too movement. It was, you know, very limited what he does. He's a handsy guy, and, you know, he did some things that were fireable, but not nearly as bad as the, you know, the nursing home thing, which resulted in deaths and just all of it. New York being the worst state. I've covered that. It's not important to go over again. You know, there's just this old world stuff. You know, people from their, you know, homeland, people who, you know, immigrate here from different countries. There's good things about everybody's culture, and then there's weird stuff. There's superstitious stuff. There's ritualistic stuff, right? And so this is just that old world stuff here, where, you know, his culture that he grew up in, his family was very kissy and touchy and all these things, and he thinks it's okay, and not realizing that, you know, the majority of other people didn't grow up with this, you know, and have come to terms with it, if they did, that it's not normal behavior, but he used it as his defense. But ultimately, it was the nursing home thing that this is all about. They just didn't want to fire him for that. So I'm going to go to some celebrity stuff next. You know, Lizzo and Paulina Porzovakova and, you know, some other, like, update things. But I have a bunch of stuff to say about this Afghan stuff that I haven't covered in even my long videos so far. That is, you know, it's definitely something of a watershed event. But let's go to this Lizzo thing. I videoed this. I took this screen grab, I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago. But with all the Afghani stuff, I wasn't able to. You know, the Lizzo stuff just didn't make the cut. So let's go to Lizzo. A bunch of stuff to get to here, celebrity-wise. This is, you know, more of a condemnation of America than, I mean, just the celebrity, you know, I'm talking about, social media celebrities as well. Another unhappy, ghoulish, ungrateful celebrity.
But on the days I feel like I should be the happiest.
Also in the bathroom, just like Madonna, Madam Expiration Date, who always does these sort of Instaghoul, and this is an Instaghoul, depressed, sad, I'm going to vent my unhappiness with my celebrity status. It's a very commonplace thing to do here.
It just... I feel so down. Like, I worked so hard.
She's hurting really hard. It might be the tightness of that skull cap there.
Working triple time, like quadruple time. It's like doing like 12 hours a day of promos and interviews, doing studio, going to the studio with a...
You mean your job, right, as a celebrity? To make money and promote yourself as a celebrity? Doing promos. 12 hours a day talking about myself and being out there and, trying to make money off of my fans and all those things. Being a celebrity that I work so hard for. It's dissatisfying.
Fucking root canal, gotten a root canal twice and gone...
Couple of root canals.
To the studio and recorded music, wrote songs.
And even with the root canal, went out and made some of her crappy music.
I'm in rehearsal. I'm filming every single day. Shooting documentary. I'm still writing music.
And still, I mean, I'm so proud of myself. Under all these circumstances, I'm still putting out really crappy music and
shooting music videos and promo and photo shoots.
Photo shoots, having my picture taken.
I'm putting so much loving energy into the world.
No, you're not. This is why she's in this video. You're not putting loving energy into this world. I saw your crappy new video with Cardi B that was trending #1 on YouTube Trends, and the same old stuff, right? Here's this video. They have this Egyptian theme, right? And here's just a little taste of her rap.
I get groupies at my shows. Oh, goddamn.
She's not a good rapper. The song isn't a good song. It's just not pleasant to listen to. They hyped this. It was trending #1 on YouTube Trends, and Cardi B isn't a good rapper, and the music isn't good. And it's not pleasant to listen to. At the end of the video, there's Cardi B and her. They're on a vase, fireworks, and then they come together and do this. They give the finger touch, and Kazawi, a lightning bolt. And then they turn into these goddess pictures on this Egyptian vase. These two goddesses. Is the way that they're being portrayed here is that they're goddesses. And they're not, right? They're not higher developed people.
I'm putting so much loving energy into the world.
There's not a lot of love in this video. She talks about people, all these haters that are creating rumors, her and Cardi B, right? A lot of victim consciousness, a lot of me, big ego diva stuff, just classic. Like, it's all about her. It's not giving love, right? It's not spreading loving energy. See, what celebrities fail to understand, I guess at some point they have their moments. I mean, I've seen Jim Carrey talk about it, and I just did a video on Madonna where she was talking about in these old interviews that they are miserable, right? That they thought they would be happy, and that seems to be their big victim statement. Just with the Afghanistan thing as well, that there's a bait and switch, that all these people who are vying for these celebrity positions, who want some sort of fame and fortune. And when they achieve it, especially the ones that get up to the sort of top level, and they realize they're more miserable and they're being used. They're being used by the powers that be. Maybe they don't even understand that. I don't think Lizzo does. I mean, certainly not now in her, rant on Instagram. And then they feel like victims because, they thought they were promised something that doesn't deliver for them. And this is everybody in the American culture that vies for one of these sort of celebrity spots or to be rich and powerful people, that life is full of miseries no matter what. Happiness is not something that you can achieve in the outside world. It has to be something that's within you, and it has to be under all circumstances and conditions. And really, it's not happiness, it's gratitude. That you're grateful for God, to God, for whatever befalls you in your life, because it's what you're supposed to receive to, better yourself and move along your spiritual journey. That God is helping you along, motivating you, moving you along, all these things. And that material success will never give you what you're looking for, which is, divine love, which is the end of your journey when you return to the source and you're back with your creator, right? When you've finished your path, at least this path on planet Earth. And so very few people understand this. This is why I talk about with the heartfulness system and having a real goal, finding out what your true goal is. Why are you here? And lots of people think it's to be rich and famous and to have some sort of great pleasurable experience in the material world. And so, they're following a false path, an idolatry. You're trying to become an idol, right? And then they're like, I'm doing all this for you guys. I'm giving you guys all this love. Look at the work I'm doing. I'm doing promos. I've been having root canals. I'm going out there. I'm giving you guys all this love and content, and you guys are being mean to me, right? Like, you're not doing it for us. Well, I mean, your fans. You're not doing it for everybody else. You want to be famous. You wanted this. And then now you're like, oh, this sucks, right? And, another thing that people don't understand, people on social media, that not everyone's going to like you. It's not about 100% approval. It's about finding an audience that accepts you or likes you for who you are. You can't pander to everybody or please everybody. You're going to have some people that like you, and anytime you put yourself out there on social media or as a celebrity, whatever it is, you're going to get haters. You're going to get people who dislike you and don't connect with you. And you can't even think about them. They're not important to you. That's what I say here all the time. Just, if you're a hater, just go. You don't need to be here. Like, why are you here? Like, why are you here to hate, right? Why are you watching these videos to feel miserable? Like, what's wrong with you? Go enjoy yourself. Go find something that you do like. Go find somebody to connect with. Why go and just be negative and hateful? It makes no sense at all to live your life that way. You're watching something that makes you angry, then change the channel or figure out, where your anger's coming from and deal with it, right? But, these people want 100% approval, and they want everyone to love them, but they do things that are controversial, and they're being, used by the powers that be to degrade humanity, especially these two so-called, iconic music celebrities, music stars. They're not good at their work. They're not good rappers. They're not producing quality music, but they're controversial and they're pushing an agenda. So let's go to this thing with Paulina Porizkova. Paulina Porizkova addresses crying selfie air shames on Instagram. So she married that dude from the Cars, and then they were married for a while, and then they got divorced. He got sick, she went to take care of him, and he cut her out of his will, right? And so she started crying over here. And so she posted this picture of herself crying I know you all enjoy happy posts, seeing people pick themselves up, dust off their pants, and get back on the horse, all while smiling to let you know this fall just made me stronger and better, people. But every day is not a happy day in the path of recovery. Long post, not going to read it. But, you know, all these things are fake. Instagul's fake, right? You know, mostly it's about modeling and your appearance and things. I mean, look, here she is in bikinis, you know. Like, this is a person that's probably older than me, you know. And she's still obsessed with her appearance. And then she wrote this. Firstly, thank you all for the unexpected amount of sympathy. A few of my friends accused me of being a narcissist and posting emotions on Instagram so I could get attention and my ass kissed by sycophants. I had to think about it. Am I here to gather sympathy? And what I discovered is really important to me. No, because I'm trying to exercise my shame. I post thoughts and emotions that I'm ashamed of. I'm ashamed that I'm grieving, heartbroken, and sad. I'm ashamed that I'm needy. I'm ashamed that I'm aging. I'm ashamed that I can be a judgmental bitch. I'm ashamed I wasn't the parent I meant to be. I'm ashamed that those that I love left me. I'm ashamed of my fear, and I'm not worth loving. I'm ashamed to not measure up to expectations and disappointment. I'm ashamed to cry. I'm ashamed of all my vulnerabilities, so I share them. Sharing them is making them less shameful, and in return I gain acceptance of who I am, the authentic me, not the one I would like to sell. Then I shared with you to lose my shame. You're welcome to do the same. Yeah, no thanks. And I don't know what this one is. Another long post, right? You know, why do you have to make these things public, right? Like, it doesn't matter. The people that are out there are all broken and twisted and crazy. This is what I talk about, right? You know, this isn't therapy, and it isn't spiritual. It's Instagul. It's Instagul where people create some, you know, it's all superficial and artificial and, you know, these types of things here. Like, what, you know, it's got a little red hat, you know, and these long rants he's going on. And so, yeah, you know, you're miserable just like every other celebrity. Don't bring it to Instagul. Like, don't, like, bare your soul or your, you know, your ego. It's not your soul. Don't bare your ego on Instagul. Instagul is something where people post superficial stuff, and it is a, you know, narcissistic place. That's why it's Instagul. It isn't Insta-soul. It isn't Insta-God. It's Instagul. So let's get to the Afghani stuff here. The Afghan war. CIA warned of rapid Afghanistan collapse. So why did U.S. get it so wrong? White House says armed Taliban have U.S. weapons taken from Afghani forces. You know, I said that was going to happen. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it took some genius to figure that out, that everything that Americans gave to the army is now in the hands of the Taliban.
Dollars worth of weaponry that the U.S. gave Afghanistan. Does the U.S. have a plan for that, or does it remain in the Taliban hands?
We don't have a complete picture, obviously, of where every article of defense materials has gone, but certainly a fair amount of it has fallen into the hands of the Taliban.
All of it. By fair amount, you mean all of it. They're not leaving the country with it, and the country's run by Taliban, or it's in the personal possession of former soldiers that couldn't do jumping jacks and shot at U.S. troops during joint missions. Those are your two choices. A, Taliban. 2, expert jumping jackers. Well, I'll show you that again because that's great. I'll be coming up in the narrative portion. So my wife sent me this meme to go along with this. The Taliban now are in possession of more Black Hawk helicopters than 166 other nations around the globe, but at least there are no more mean tweets. And so, you know, these are a reference to Trump's mean tweets that everyone was so upset about. So the thing about the weapons and the debacle is obviously true, but I think a lot of people who are haters of Joe Biden don't understand when the blame took place, because we'll go back through that. Let me go through the rest of these headlines here. Up to 15,000 Americans remain in Afghanistan after Taliban takeover. Well, that's not good. White House ramps up Afghan policy defense as criticisms mount. This is the headline from Huffington Post. Critics rip Biden for Afghan evac failures, neglected to act. So there's a few things that are, significant that I left out from these other long videos that I did about this. The first one is, I said this over and over again, but I didn't say it as clearly as I'm about to say it here, that the present Joe Biden, the Joe Biden that is in charge of this debacle, isn't the one who screwed it up. And of course, Joe Biden, he's a puppet and he can barely tie his shoes. He's not making real decisions. But in terms of what's happening now, the blame is from 20 years ago because they lied us into war. And those of us who saw it, I was certainly not as awake as I am now about all that has gone on with the so-called controllers and the media. But even back 20 years ago, I could see that they were lying us into these wars. And the decisions, especially, Afghanistan made sense from what they were saying. We knew something had to happen after 2001, right? The big event in 2001, we all knew we were going to war. People needed, that's what America does. And so we knew war was going to happen. So Afghanistan made the most sense. But once they were there, it really didn't make sense at all. And then they immediately shifted all the focus on Iraq and all that stuff, happened with Iraq that made no sense because Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with what happened in 2001. And those of us who saw it, lots of people who are now awake, who are Republicans, were backing George W. Bush, and they bought into the official story, and they wanted some payback, a lot of Americans. And so this is a validation for people who said, hey, this doesn't make any sense at all, people in the so-called truth community. Because you have a lot of people, sheeple, who are saying, well, what was this all for? Well, it was never for what they told you it was for, right? It's that simple. And, people are making the mistake because there's a lot of Trumpers and a lot of Biden haters who are like, thinking about Joe Biden being incompetent now, that he could have done a better job of the, with exit strategy, and they could have flown people out ahead of time. But what he said, he went to the Taliban officials. What Biden said was, and again, these aren't his decisions. Biden is clearly incompetent, and they know it. They didn't put him in there so he would make his own decisions. They're wrecking him right now. They're doing it intentionally, right? They're taking him down, his handlers. And, what he said in the speech was that they went to the Afghani government and said, should we start evacuating people before? And they said, no, that'll cause a panic. That'll, people lose confidence and say, oh, if everyone's being evacuated, that must mean the Taliban's going to take over. And so if they evacuated people early and that set off a panic, they'd be talking about that, right? The press is now all of a sudden becoming real press, for a moment with Joe Biden, and are criticizing him and are questioning his decisions. But this was never about what's happening right now. This was always going to happen. This is why Trump didn't do it. Trump wanted to get all the troops out of Afghanistan, but they told him this was going to happen, right? He saw what was going to happen there. And so, and then with what happened with COVID and all these things and the way that they were treating Trump, imagine if Trump had made this decision and this is what the outcome was. They would be like, oh, he's incompetent. Look at, the way they would have descended on him, the media and everybody. But it's not about what's happening right now. It's about when this problem was created 20 years ago with the lies and the, deception to lead America into wars that weren't for what they were what we were told they were for, right? And the outcome was never going to be what was promised. And a lot of people got rich over this. And part of the, part of the outcome, part of what's happening, part of the real reason, one is to take America down. Like America is being broken right now. American, confidence is being lost. American division has happened across the board, the schism between, all different groups of people, all these various demographics at war, and then the economy and the incompetency of the presidency and all of it, right? And just the moral degradation. It's clear that this is a part of taking America down, whether it's the controllers or God or whatever it is, right? This is what happens to dynasties, to championship dynasties in sports, to dynasties in business, all these things. Eventually, you go the other way. Eventually, your dynasty collapses, your empire collapses, and that's what's happening here for lots of reasons. The number one being because God wants it to happen as part of a divine plan. But the controllers also want it to happen for their agenda, their global agenda. So America has to be taken down. So that's one reason. Another part of that is the opium that was exported. If you look at the way the opium levels rose, I showed a graphic of that, and they were up to, a world high, the most opium that had ever been produced in the world in 2009, 2010. And 90% of that was coming from Afghanistan. I showed you the graph, and right after that, in 2010, was the opioid crisis, which is also a part of taking America down. So there was that. Then there was the cover-up for the economic collapse that happened in 2001. This was a way to reset the economy. And then people made money. People got paid. Halliburton, Dick Cheney, people like that got paid. Opium producers, pharmaceutical companies. I mean, you had all these people that walked away with some of that $1 trillion of money that was dumped into Afghanistan. And what was it in Iraq? $2 trillion in Iraq. So $3 trillion, 1 year of income, because the IRS gets about $3.2, $3.5 trillion in taxes every year. And so, the wars cost 1 year of income of the entire, tax revenue. And so people got paid. That money, that's a lot of money. That's $3 million, right? Do you understand what that means? $3 million, it's 1,000 billion dollars, and 3,000 billion dollars. That's how much 3 trillion is. And it's $1 million or $3 million. So all that money, if they split it up, they could have paid 3 million people $1 million apiece, right? You think about how much $1 million is. So, this is, a lot of money wasted in these wars. And so it isn't about how Biden is handling it now. It's that they let it go this long. Because, all right, yeah, Biden's responsible. Biden's, mentally, his mind's deteriorating and he sucks and nobody really loved the guy. And there's no enthusiasm. All the stuff that I talk about. His snoozling, sniffling, groping, all the things, right? All the things that Biden, his crackhead son. Those are all Joe Biden now. But Joe Biden, for years, was a career politician who rubber-stamped all these wars. And then, as a senator and then as a vice president, went along with them. Obama should have got out when he was first elected. He promised it, never did. He promised it. And even Bush should have got out before that because everyone knew. Imagine, I'll be showing the jumping jacks throughout here. But imagine the drill sergeants who are training these Afghani troops how to do jumping jacks. Right? And, going, because if you went into basic training in American military and you were doing jumping jacks like this, they would toss you out right there, right? They knew. Like they knew, and everybody who saw this, they were shaking their heads. They knew that there was, if the Afghanistan military was going to be a crucial part in the success of this mission, which it was, if America was somehow going to have to turn over control of the country and security of the country to the Afghan military and was handing out these weapons and this training, spending billions of dollars on it, and, they knew as soon as they left, everything was going to fall in the hands of the Taliban, and the Taliban would be stronger than ever. Like, they all knew that for years, but they kept it going. Think about keeping it going. Why would you keep it going when you knew ultimately this was going to be the result? That's, what America is all about right now. that the people controlling the system, one, didn't want to take the blame because the same thing happened with Vietnam. No one wants to admit to losing a war. No president. No president wants to own that. And so there's the political ramifications, but it was also the gravy train of money and the military-industrial complex stuff that was going on that's a part of that. And that's all Republican. It used to be all Republican stuff. And so people who are right-wing people got to realize this isn't Joe Biden's incompetence now. It's, the lies that you believed under Bush and for years as a Republican right-wing person about the military and all the rest of it. See, people don't want to go back to the origins. Certainly the media doesn't want to go back to the initial beginning of this thing and saying this was wrong. You lied to us, and then look into this, right? The lies always come out, right? Because they were never going to deliver on their promises of what this was supposed to be about in Iraq or Afghanistan. You're going to see these countries become problems later on for America. These countries are going to be worse problems than before after dumping in all that money, and they'll do the same thing because, they'll get away with it. They'll keep on getting away with it until America isn't the #1 military anymore, which isn't that far off because America's crumbling on every level, and you can see it. And so, again, it's not something that can be prevented. There's no real resistance, and people don't have the ability to do what needs to be done to turn things around. And this is, showing you that, right? This is the end of America as you know it. There was no Make America Great Again. That appealed to people. Trump found a winning strategy, found something that people wanted to hear, but couldn't deliver on it. Like America wasn't being made great again under Trump because everything that happened under Trump, all the big things, were pushing through a liberal agenda. I mean, think about all the various ways of the Hollywood morality that's been rolled out now and all the other movements that happened under Trump. They pushed through all kinds of things because the Trumpers thought Trump had it. Oh, he had this. Q's got it, right? The Cubies. They were so filled with hopium that they didn't see what was happening right in front of them. America is crumbling, and it should crumble. It's not, it's being done by the controllers, but it's God's will. Like every empire has to crumble. And, there's just the degradation. Like think about how bad the kids are right now, how, miserable and messed up they are. I mean, the rates of, all these rates of negative things these kids have, they're lost, they're weak, they don't really have a presence in the external world, they're being isolated, and they spend, most of their waking hours on the internet. They have, more cyber lives than real human lives, and they're having physical issues and health issues as well, right? Across the board, they are weaker and worse off, and they're completely indoctrinated by the system, and they go along with the stuff that's being fed to them by their social media influencers and the celebrity culture and the government and all this stuff. And so America is, falling right now, and it should fall. And so it's like, what are you going to do about it for yourself? Like, what are you going to do for you and your family to survive this thing? And like I always said, everything starts from within. It's they got to people's internal worlds, and they're getting to these kids' internal worlds through their heavy-duty programming, the internet, social media, their school system, and this agenda that, my generation and you older people are looking at going, how is this possible? Like it looks so evil and ridiculous. The kids buy into it. That's what they believe on the inside. They're going along with it, right? This whole Hollywood agenda, this whole everything that's happening. This so-called liberal agenda, it's not true liberalism. These kids will be happy with a video game in a small apartment and being able to walk around in a, some sort of overpopulated Agenda 31 complex and not owning anything and no responsibilities and just, being internet addicts or whatever it is, right? And being completely devoid of anything that we viewed as human life, right? Doing outside things, doing things externally, traveling or, doing any of that stuff. I mean, they'll buy right into it because their internal worlds are being made to manifest that future. They know that we don't like it. They're just discounting our generations. They're waiting for us to die off or whatever they're going to do with our generations because we're not going to accept it. But these kids they're already accepting it, right? They're already buying into it. They don't really have relationships with their families. I mean, these younger kids, they spend almost no time with their, parents, and, their biggest influencers are on the internet who have grabbed hold of their internal world. This is why I talk about the heartfulness meditation, where you work on divinizing your internal world, where you help your soul and God's love to emerge from you. Like Lizzo was saying that she gives so much love to the world. No, you're twerking, right? You're just twerking. That's not love, right? What I offer here in terms of, anything good that comes from this channel comes through the heartfulness system. It's a system that helps people connect to the divinity within, right? That's why I, whatever, good things that come through me from God. That's the way it is for everyone. You don't create love, you allow love to flow through you. You find the love that's already there. Love is pervading the universe. Love is everywhere. Love is the basis of all creation. Love is the transmission that's given in the heartfulness system. This divine energy for the utilization of the divine energy for the transformation of man, what Babaji called it. Love is everywhere. It's all pervading. You just have to find the love and allow the love to come through. You can feel it in your heart and allow it to spill out and, to come through you and pour through you, and then other people who are receptive can benefit from it, right? So this is something it's a choice. It's a choice to feel God, to feel God's love, right? To connect to God. These are all choices people have to make. And the young people are so far away from it, but at some point, when you go away in the wrong direction, like they're being led away like the Pied Piper, this younger generation, just like with Afghanistan, at some point, reality sets in. At some point, the system, gets exposed to the people who run it for their lies and their manipulation. It can't go on forever. And when that happens, there's an opportunity for these younger generations to turn the tides, reverse the course that they've been on, and move towards something more substantial and real. Connect to God on a deeper level and regain a external presence in this world and have real relationships and families and bring back what is taken away from our generation. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.